The Galactic Alliance had stood for centuries as humanity's greatest achievement, a testament to cooperation across species that had once been at war. Yet beneath its gleaming diplomatic halls and joint scientific endeavors, ancient rivalries simmered. Captain Alaric Reed of the human patrol vessel, Aegis, knew this better than most. "Status report," Alaric called, as he strode onto the bridge, the ship's lighting dimming to battle-ready amber. His uniform, pressed and immaculate as always, bore the silver insignia of the Earth Defense Corps, a sword crossed with an olive branch. Lieutenant Kira Sato's fingers danced across her console. Entering the outer security ring of Lagrange Station. "Captain, standard diplomatic protocols engaged." "And our VIP?" Alaric asked, settling into the command chair. Its neural interface hummed to life, connecting him to the ship's systems. "Still sequestered in her quarters," First Officer Marcus Chen replied. "The Starlight delegation seems uncomfortable with our security measures." Alaric nodded. The Starlight species, formerly known as the Luminary, were notoriously proud. Their crystalline physiologies and natural bioluminescence had given rise to a culture steeped in ritual and formality. This mission to escort their princess through contested space was more than routine patrol work. It was a test of the increasingly fragile peace. "Maintain course and keep shields at standby. I'll personally check on our guest." Alaric rose, straightening his uniform. "Commander Volkov, you have the bridge." The corridors of the Aegis pulsed with activity as crew members prepared for docking. Alaric nodded to passing officers, his mind cataloging the 1,000 details that kept a warship running. The Luminary Princess had been a last-minute addition to their mission, a diplomatic courtesy that had Admiral Heyerdahl practically begging Alaric to avoid an interstellar incident. "Remember," the Admiral had said during their final briefing, "the Starlight Empire sits on the largest reserves of quantum plasma in the known galaxy. Their alliance is critical." At the guest quarters, Alaric paused before announcing himself. The door's surface displayed unfamiliar glyphs. Luminary protective symbols, he realized. Someone from the delegation had modified the ship's systems. A security breach, technically, but not worth the diplomatic headache of mentioning. "Captain Reed requesting permission to enter," he announced formally. The door slid open to reveal an interior, transformed. The standard quarters had been draped in diaphanous materials that caught and refracted light, creating a miniature cosmos within the small space. In the center stood Princess Xylar, her crystalline form refracting the ambient light into prismatic patterns across the walls. "Captain," she acknowledged, her voice melodic yet formal. Unlike most Luminari, who required translation devices, the princess spoke flawless, standard English. "We approach the transfer station?" Alaric nodded, careful to maintain the appropriate distance. Luminary nobility considered proximity without invitation a grave insult. "We'll be docking within the hour, Your Highness. I wanted to personally ensure you're comfortable with the transfer protocols." Princess Xylar's form shifted slightly, the light patterns changing to cooler blues. What Alaric had learned indicated contemplation among her kind. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her humanoid form composed of translucent, crystalline structures that pulsed with internal light. Where humans had hair, she possessed tendrils of luminescent energy that flowed like liquid light. "Your ship is adequate, Captain." Her tone suggested it was anything but. "Though I find your species' reliance on mechanical protection, rather than ceremonial oaths, primitive." Alaric bit back a retort. This wasn't the time for a cultural debate. Different approaches to the same goal. "Your Highness, safety." "Perhaps." She gestured toward a small, ornate box on a nearby table. "Among my people, this would provide more protection than your ship's entire arsenal." Curiosity piqued. Alaric stepped closer, only after receiving her subtle nod of permission. The box contained what appeared to be a ceremonial dagger, its blade composed of the same crystalline material as the luminary themselves. The oath blade, Xylar explained. When blood, or in my case, essence, is spilled upon it, a life debt is formed, the most sacred bond in our culture. I've heard of these, Alaric said, genuinely interested despite himself. The bond is unbreakable, isn't it? Indeed. Her light patterns shifted to a deeper, more intense blue. The debtor's life becomes intertwined with the Savior's. Our fates become one. An alarm cut through their conversation. 3 short bursts, followed by a sustained tone. Alaric's neural implant flared with incoming data. Captain to the bridge. Emergency Protocol Alpha. Commander Volkov's voice came through the ship-wide comm. Excuse me, Your Highness. Alaric turned sharply. Please remain here. Security protocols are in effect. He didn't wait for her response, already striding toward the bridge. The ship's corridors had transformed. Emergency lighting. Crew members moving with practiced efficiency to battle stations. Whatever was happening, it wasn't a drill. Report, Alaric demanded as he entered the bridge. Volkov's face was grim. Unidentified vessels emerging from the shadow of Lagrange Station. They're not responding to hails and are moving into attack formation. Alaric took in the tactical display. 3 small craft, moving with the distinctive patterns of military vessels despite their civilian markings. Blood Crescent insurgents? Looks like it, Kira confirmed. They must have gotten wind of the princess's transport. The Blood Crescent movement had emerged in the aftermath of the last galactic conflict. Extremists who believed that peaceful coexistence between species was impossible. They targeted diplomatic missions with particular ferocity. Shields up, weapons hot. Alert station security and request immediate. The ship rocked violently before Alaric could finish. Warning indicators flashed across the bridge displays. Direct hit to aft shields, Kira called out. They've got some kind of phase-shifted weaponry. It's partially penetrating our defenses. Alaric grimaced. Return fire, disabling shots only, and get a security team to the princess's quarters immediately. The Aegis responded smoothly, her defense systems engaging the attacking vessels. But something felt wrong. The attack pattern was too obvious, too frontal. It felt like... It's a diversion, Alaric realized suddenly. Bridge to Security Team Alpha. Status report on the princess. Static answered him. Then, Captain, this is Torres. We've got a breach on Deck C, Section 4. Looks like they teleported aboard somehow. We're engaging, but... The communication cut off in a burst of weapons fire. Deck C, Section 4, directly adjacent to the guest quarters. Alaric was moving before he could even formulate an order. Volkov, you have the bridge. Continue defensive operations and alert Alliance Command. The turbolift seemed agonizingly slow as Alaric drew his sidearm, checking its charge. Standard Alliance protocol dictated that the captain remain on the bridge during combat situations. But this was no standard situation. If the princess were killed on his ship, the fragile peace between humans and Luminari would shatter. He emerged into chaos. The corridor outside the princess's quarters was filled with acrid smoke, the walls scarred by energy weapon discharge. 2 of his security team lay motionless on the deck, while Torres and another officer maintained a defensive position at an intersection. Captain, Torres called in surprise. They've breached the princess's quarters. 3 assailants, heavily armed. We couldn't. Cover me, Alaric ordered, not waiting for the rest. He charged down the corridor, weapon ready. The door to the princess's quarters had been forced open. Inside, furniture lay shattered, the beautiful ethereal draperies now burning with chemical fire. 2 figures in black combat armor were attempting to subdue Princess Xylar, who fought with unexpected ferocity, her crystalline form emitting blinding pulses of light. A third attacker stood slightly apart, aiming what appeared to be a specialized containment device, designed to imprison a luminari without killing them. A kidnapping, not an assassination. Alaric fired twice in rapid succession. The first shot caught one attacker in the shoulder, spinning them away from the princess. The second missed as his target ducked behind an overturned table. "Alliance security! Stand down!" Alaric shouted, more for protocol than any expectation of compliance. The response came in the form of concentrated fire that forced him to take cover behind a shattered doorframe. The princess's light had dimmed considerably, a sign of distress or injury among her kind. She was weakening. The attacker with the containment device had nearly reached her. In seconds, they would have her secured and likely teleport away. To what fate? Alaric couldn't imagine. Time seemed to slow. Alaric saw the third attacker reach for something at their belt. Not the containment device, but something else. A weapon. As it came up, Alaric recognized the distinctive shape of a molecular disruptor, banned throughout civilized space for the horrific, irreparable damage it caused to living tissue. The attacker wasn't planning to kidnap the princess. They were going to kill her. Alaric acted without conscious thought. He lunged from cover, crossing the space between them in 3 long strides. The attacker turned, the disruptor coming to bear, not on Alaric, but still aimed at the princess. There was no time for a clean shot. Alaric threw himself forward, directly into the path of the weapon. He felt a searing, white-hot pain as the disruptor fired, the beam catching him squarely in the chest. His neural implant screamed warnings as his uniform disintegrated, and the flesh beneath began to break down at the molecular level. Despite the agony, Alaric maintained enough control to bring his own weapon up and fire point-blank into the attacker's chest. The insurgent collapsed, but Alaric barely registered it as he fell to his knees, the disruptor's effects spreading through his body like liquid fire. Through a haze of pain, he was vaguely aware of Torres and the security team storming the room, subduing the remaining attackers. Someone was calling for emergency medical transport. Then the princess was beside him, her crystalline form now pulsing with a deep, intense light he hadn't seen before. She knelt, unmindful of the human blood soaking into her ceremonial robes. "You sacrificed yourself," she said, her voice resonating with something like wonder. "For me." Alaric tried to respond, but could only manage a pained gasp. The molecular disruptor's damage was catastrophic. He could feel his own cells breaking down, neural pathways misfiring. Princess Xylar reached out, her crystalline hand hovering over his wound. Then, to Alaric's surprise, she produced the ceremonial dagger he'd seen earlier, the oath blade. "My life is a debt to you," she intoned formally, her voice carrying a resonance that seemed to vibrate through Alaric's failing body. She drew the blade across her own palm, and instead of blood, a luminescent fluid like liquid starlight welled forth. With deliberate ceremony, she pressed her wounded palm against Alaric's chest, directly over the molecular disruptor's damage. Her voice rose in a language Alaric didn't understand, but somehow felt he should. A sensation like ice and fire simultaneously flooded through him, momentarily overriding even the disruptor's pain. Where her palm touched his wound, her luminescent essence seemed to flow into him, creating a momentary bridge between their vastly different physiologies. "By the ancient laws of my people," Xylar continued, now in English, "your life is bound to mine. Your enemies are my enemies. Your pain is my pain." Her voice grew stronger, filling the room with resonant power. "And should your people suffer harm, mine shall answer with the fury of a dying star." As darkness closed in around Alaric's consciousness, her final words seemed to echo not just in his ears, but somehow within his very cells. "This is the oath of life debt. It is sworn." The medical bay of the Aegis hummed with equipment, much of it hastily adapted to interface with luminary technology. Dr. Eleanor Way moved efficiently between displays, her expression betraying none of the concern she felt as she monitored Captain Reed's vital signs. "His cellular degradation has stabilized," she reported to Commander Volkov, who stood rigidly at the foot of the biobed. "But I can't explain how. By all medical science, the damage from that molecular disruptor should have been irreversible." Volkov's gaze shifted to the other side of the medical bay, where Princess Xylar stood motionless, her crystalline form pulsing with subdued light. Since performing her ritual over the captain, she had refused to leave the medical bay, claiming it would violate her oath. "And the connection she claims exists between them now?" Volkov asked quietly. Dr. Way shook her head. "Our sensors detect unusual quantum entanglement patterns in both the captain's cellular structure and the princess's crystalline matrix. Beyond that," she shrugged helplessly. "This is beyond Earth medical science." Alaric's consciousness returned slowly, like swimming up through layers of thick liquid. The pain had receded to a dull ache centered in his chest. His neural implant was offline, standard medical procedure for major trauma. But he could sense the ship around him, the familiar vibration of the engines through the deck plating. "Captain," Dr. Way was at his side immediately. "Can you hear me?" "Report," Alaric managed, his voice rough. Way smiled slightly. "Typical. You've been unconscious for 36 hours. The insurgents have been contained and we've rendezvoused with an Alliance cruiser. We're currently en route to Luminary space under escort." Alaric attempted to sit up, wincing as fresh pain lanced through his chest. "The princess?" "I am here, Captain Reed." Princess Xylar stepped into his field of vision, her crystalline form now adorned with new, intricate patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Alaric's heartbeat. "You are recovering well." "What did you do?" Alaric asked, remembering the ceremony she had performed. "That weapon should have killed me." Xylar's light patterns shifted to deep blues and purples. "I enacted the Oath of Life Debt, the most sacred bond among my people. Part of my essence now resides within you, sustaining the molecular damage until your body can heal itself." "The princess has refused to elaborate further," Dr. Way added, checking Alaric's vitals. "But whatever she did, it saved your life." Commander Volkov cleared his throat. "Captain, there's more. The princess's action has complicated our mission. The Luminary High Council has demanded we divert directly to their homeworld, and Admiral Heyerdahl has been in constant communication." Alaric sensed the tension in his first officer's voice. "What aren't you telling me, Commander?" Volkov looked uncomfortable. "The oath the princess swore isn't just a cultural formality. It's apparently a binding diplomatic arrangement under Luminary law. By saving your life, she's committed her entire species to your defense. And by extension," Princess Xylar added calmly, "to the defense of humanity itself." The implications hit Alaric like a physical blow. In the complex web of galactic politics, such an oath could upset the delicate balance of power that had maintained peace for decades. The Luminari were one of the most technologically advanced species in known space. Their allegiance to humanity would be seen as a threat by other major powers. The Blood Crescent, Alaric realized suddenly. Could they have known this would happen? Was this their plan all along? Princess Xylar's light dimmed slightly. "It is possible. There are factions among my people who would welcome conflict. The Blood Crescent movement has sympathizers in many species." "We need to get to the Luminary homeworld," Alaric decided, again attempting to sit up. This time, Dr. Way didn't try to stop him. "If this oath is as significant as you say, we need to address the High Council directly." "You are in no condition to travel," Dr. Way objected. "On the contrary," Princess Xylar interjected. "His presence is required. The oath binds us. Where I go, He must follow, until the debt is resolved. Alaric met her gaze, seeing something new there, a respect that hadn't existed before. Then we go together, Your Highness. Commander Volkov, set course for the Luminary homeworld. Maximum sustainable speed. Already done, Captain, Volkov confirmed. We'll arrive in approximately 72 hours. As the others left to make preparations, Alaric found himself alone with Princess Xylar. The silence between them felt charged with unasked questions. Why? He finally asked. Why invoke such a serious oath for someone you barely know? Someone whose species you clearly consider inferior? Xylar's light patterns shifted through several configurations before settling into a steady, golden glow. You acted without hesitation to save my life, at the cost of your own. Such nobility deserves recognition. She paused, her crystalline features impossible to read in human terms. And perhaps I wish to demonstrate that my people's ways are not as primitive as you might believe. I never said you didn't need to. Her tone held no accusation. But now, Captain Reed, we are bound together in ways neither of us fully understands. My life essence flows within you. We will discover what that means, together. As the Aegis accelerated toward luminary space, Alaric couldn't shake the feeling that he had inadvertently stepped onto a much larger stage than a simple escort mission, one where the fate of multiple civilizations might hang in the balance. The journey to the luminary homeworld was unlike anything Alaric had experienced in his 15 years of space service. As the Aegis traversed the increasingly alien sectors of space, the ship's systems required constant recalibration to navigate the unique quantum distortions that characterized luminary territory. Their sun is unlike any we've encountered, Science Officer Imani Okafor explained during one of their daily briefings. It emits particles that interact with space-time in ways our instruments weren't designed to measure. But the true strangeness lay in Alaric's new connection to Princess Xylar. The life debt oath had created something beyond mere symbolic binding. Alaric found himself occasionally experiencing flashes of perception that weren't his own, glimpses of the world through crystalline senses that perceived light, energy, and matter in fundamentally different ways. Dr. Wei monitored these episodes with growing concern. The quantum entanglement between your cellular structure and her crystalline matrix is strengthening, she reported. I'm detecting synchronization in your brainwave patterns during these episodes. Is it dangerous? Alaric asked. Not entirely sure he wanted the answer. Wei's expression was carefully neutral. Unknown. We're in uncharted territory, Captain. No human has ever been bound to a luminary before. The princess herself seemed fascinated by the development. She had taken to spending hours in Alaric's company, asking endless questions about human culture, history, and biology. In turn, she shared insights into luminary society that few outsiders had ever been privy to. My people evolved in a star system saturated with quantum plasma, she explained one evening as they shared a meal in his quarters. She consuming light energy, he a standard protein supplement. Our bodies naturally manipulate quantum states in ways your scientists are only beginning to understand. Is that how you saved me? Alaric asked. By manipulating the quantum state of my damaged cells? Xylar's light patterns shifted to a thoughtful blue. Partially. But the oath is more than science, Captain. It is spiritual, for lack of a better term in your language. It connects us on a level beyond physical reality. Alaric had never considered himself spiritual, but he couldn't deny the profound nature of their connection. Sometimes, in quiet moments, he could almost feel her presence in his mind, not intrusive, but simply there, like knowing someone was in the next room without seeing them. As they neared luminary space, Admiral Heyerdahl's communications became increasingly urgent. You're walking into a political minefield, Captain," the Admiral warned during their final briefing. His holographic image flickered slightly with the increasing distance. "The Luminari High Council is divided on this oath situation. Some see it as an opportunity for closer alliance with Earth. Others see it as a threat," Alaric finished when Heyerdahl hesitated. "Precisely. The Blood Crescent faction has representatives in the High Council. They're already spinning this as a human plot to force the Luminari into a one-sided alliance." The Admiral's expression grew grave. "And there's more. Other species are watching this situation very carefully. The Vorshan Directorate has moved a battle group to the edge of their territory, claiming it's just a precautionary measure." The Vorshans, reptilian militarists who had long viewed both humans and Luminari with suspicion. If they perceived a strengthening alliance between the two species, they might feel threatened enough to take preemptive action. "Understood, Admiral. We'll proceed with maximum diplomatic caution." Heyerdahl nodded grimly. "Earth Command has dispatched Ambassador Marax to meet you at the Luminari homeworld. He'll provide diplomatic support." The transmission began to break up as they entered a region of space known for communications interference. "Be careful, Alaric. The peace we've maintained for decades is more fragile than most civilians realize." The transmission ended, leaving Alaric with a growing sense of unease. What had begun as a simple act of protection had escalated into a potential galactic crisis. "Your Admiral fears war," Princess Xylar observed from the doorway. Alaric hadn't heard her enter, another disquieting aspect of their connection. She seemed increasingly able to sense his emotional states. "With good reason," Alaric replied. "History has shown that even minor diplomatic incidents can spiral into conflict when multiple species are involved." Xylar's light patterns pulsed with what Alaric had come to recognize as determination. "Then, we must ensure this does not become such an incident. The oath I swore was meant to honor your sacrifice, not to threaten peace." "Some might not see it that way," Alaric cautioned. "Then we will make them see," she stated with royal certainty. "Together." The word hung between them, laden with implications neither fully understood. Whatever happened next, their fates were now intertwined by forces beyond traditional diplomacy or military protocol. 3 days later, the Aegis entered orbit around Luminara Prime, the homeworld of the Starlight people. Even from space, the planet was breathtaking, its surface a mosaic of crystalline formations that caught and refracted the light of its unusual sun, creating patterns visible from orbit. "It's beautiful," Lieutenant Kira breathed as the main view screen displayed their approach. "And heavily defended," Commander Volkov noted, indicating the sensor readings. "I'm counting at least 30 orbital platforms with defensive capabilities we can't even identify." Alaric studied the tactical display with professional interest. The Luminari were known to be peaceful, but their technological advancement made them formidable nonetheless. Their defensive systems were rumored to operate on principles that Alliance military strategists could barely comprehend. "Captain, we're being hailed," Communications Officer Diaz reported. "It's unusual. The signal's coming directly to your neural implant frequency." Alaric felt it before Diaz finished speaking, a gentle pressure against his consciousness, distinctly different from standard communication protocols. "I'll take it in my ready room," he decided, rising from the command chair. "Volkov, maintain standard orbit and alert me of any changes." In the privacy of his ready room, Alaric opened himself to the strange communication. Instead of the expected video or audio transmission, his mind filled with patterns of light and complex geometries that somehow conveyed meaning directly to his consciousness. "Captain Alaric Reed." The communication began, the words forming in his mind rather than being heard. The High Council of Luminara welcomes you and acknowledges the life debt sworn by Princess Xylar. Your presence is requested in the Crystal Citadel for formal recognition of this bond. The message continued with detailed arrival protocols, including the surprising stipulation that Alaric was to come alone, without even Princess Xylar. When he emerged from his ready room, Alaric found Princess Xylar waiting, her light patterns displaying the agitated yellows and oranges he'd come to associate with concern. "You felt the communication," he stated, rather than asked. "Yes." Her crystalline features shifted subtly. "The High Council wishes to separate us. This is unprecedented." "Is it dangerous?" Alaric asked, conscious of his crew watching the exchange with barely concealed curiosity. "Not physically," Xylar replied, after a moment's consideration. "But politically, it suggests faction within the Council. Those who wish to honor the oath and those who seek to diminish it." Alaric weighed his options. Standard protocol would dictate bringing a security team, but alienating his hosts before negotiations even began seemed unwise. "I'll go alone, as requested," he decided. "But I want the Aegis maintained at combat readiness, just in case." Commander Volkov looked distinctly unhappy with this decision, but nodded his acknowledgement. "Aye, Captain. We'll be ready to extract you at the first sign of trouble." Dr. Wei approached with a medical scanner. "At least let me equip you with a subcutaneous health monitor. If the oath connection is disrupted, we need to know immediately." Alaric submitted to the quick procedure, watching as Wei injected a microscopic device beneath the skin of his wrist. "It'll transmit your vital signs and alert us to any quantum fluctuations in the entanglement pattern," she explained. As preparations for his departure continued, Alaric found a moment alone with Princess Xylar. "Any last advice before I face your High Council?" he asked, attempting to lighten the increasingly tense atmosphere. Her response was unexpectedly serious. "Be wary of Lord Xyrex. He leads the Blood Crescent sympathizers on the Council and will seek to use this situation to his advantage." "How? I thought the life debt oath was sacrosanct in your culture." "It is," she confirmed, her light dimming slightly. "But oaths can be interpreted in many ways. Some might argue that the debt is to you personally, not to humanity as a whole. Others might claim that since your injury is healed, the debt is satisfied." Alaric considered this. "And what do you believe?" Her light patterns shifted to a deep, resonant purple he hadn't seen before. "I believe that what passes between us transcends traditional interpretations. The oath has bound us in ways neither of our species fully understands." She hesitated, then added, "Be truthful with the Council. Alaric, my people value honesty above all else." It was the first time she had used his given name rather than his rank, and somehow it felt significant, a subtle shift in their relationship from formal to something more personal. "I will," he promised. "And when I return, perhaps you can explain more about this connection we share." "If I can," she replied enigmatically. "Some things must be experienced rather than explained." The descent to Luminara Prime was unlike any planetary approach Alaric had experienced. Instead of a standard shuttle, he traveled in a luminary transport vessel, a crystalline structure that seemed to fall through space more than fly, using quantum principles rather than conventional propulsion. As they passed through the atmosphere, Alaric gazed out at the landscape below, where Earth had oceans and continents. Luminara Prime had vast fields of crystalline formations interspersed with what appeared to be flowing rivers of pure light energy. The luminary called these essence streams, natural flows of the quantum plasma that sustained their species. The crystal citadel rose from the center of the largest formation, a spire of impossible geometry that seemed to both reflect and generate light simultaneously. As the transport vessel approached, Alaric felt a strange resonance within his chest, where Princess Xylar's essence had entered his body. The quantum entanglement between them was responding to proximity to the luminary homeworld. The vessel landed on a platform that extended from the Citadel's midsection. Alaric was met by a delegation of luminary officials, their crystalline forms more varied than he had expected, some tall and slender like the princess, others more compact and faceted. They communicated in a mixture of standard English and their native light language, which Alaric was surprised to find he could partially comprehend. "Captain Reed," the foremost luminary addressed him, its form pulsing with formal blues and whites. "I am Counselor Thelix, Speaker for the High Council. Your presence honors us." Alaric offered the formal luminary greeting he had practiced, a specific configuration of his hands that acknowledged their status. "The honor is mine, Counselor. I come in peace and friendship." "As do we all," came another voice, this one tinged with an undertone Alaric couldn't quite identify. A luminary stepped forward, its crystalline structure darker and more densely packed than the others. "I am Lord Xyrex, voice of tradition on the High Council." The name triggered Xylar's warning in Alaric's mind. This was the blood crescent sympathizer she had cautioned him about. "The council awaits," Thelix announced, gesturing toward the Citadel's entrance. "We have much to discuss regarding the oath sworn by Princess Xylar." As they proceeded into the Citadel, Alaric felt increasingly disoriented. The interior architecture defied human spatial perception. Corridors seemed to bend in impossible ways. Chambers expanded beyond what their external dimensions should allow. And throughout it all, he felt the strange resonance growing stronger, pulling at something deep within him. The council chamber itself was a vast, spherical space, with 13 crystalline thrones arranged in a perfect circle. Each throne was occupied by a luminary counselor, their forms distinguished by unique patterns of light and crystalline structures that Alaric assumed denoted rank or function. At the center of the circle stood a platform of pure light energy, which Thelix directed Alaric to step onto. As he did, he felt a sudden surge in the quantum connection to Xylar, as if something in this chamber was amplifying it. "Captain Alaric Reed of Earth," Thelix announced formally. "You stand before the High Council of Luminera as the recipient of a life-debt oath from Princess Xylar, heir to the Radiant Throne." A murmur of light language rippled around the circle, too complex for Alaric to interpret. He stood straight, falling back on his military training to maintain composure in this alien environment. "We have reviewed the records of the incident," continued Thelix. "It is clear that you acted with great courage to save the princess's life, at significant risk to your own. Such actions are worthy of recognition." Lord Xyrex's darker form pulsed with intensity. "Yet, we must question the nature and extent of the oath sworn. Princess Xylar invoked the ancient form, one rarely used and carrying significant diplomatic implications." Another counselor, whose form shimmered with gentle greens, spoke up. "The oath of life debt is clear in our traditions. One who saves a royal life is entitled to royal protection. There is no ambiguity." "For the individual, yes," Xyrex countered. "But the princess extended the oath to encompass Captain Reed's entire species. This goes beyond tradition into the realm of interstellar politics." Alaric sensed the growing tension in the chamber. The council was indeed divided, just as Xylar had warned. Some seemed to view the oath as a simple matter of honor, while others, led by Xyrex, clearly saw it as a threat to existing power balances. "If I may address the council," Alaric said, stepping forward on the light platform. Thelix's form brightened slightly, in what Alaric had learned was a sign of approval. "You may speak, Captain." Alaric chose his words carefully, recalling Xylar's advice about honesty. "I acted not out of political calculation, but from the simple duty of one sentient being to another. I had no knowledge of the life debt tradition, nor did I expect any reward for my actions." He paused, feeling the quantum resonance pulse strongly in his chest. Since Princess Xylar performed the oath ritual, I have experienced a connection unlike anything in human experience. Our species are different in many ways, but in this moment of shared existence, I have glimpsed a potential for understanding that transcends traditional diplomacy. The council chamber had grown completely still, every luminary focused intently on him. I do not pretend to fully understand the implications of this oath in your culture, but I stand ready to honor whatever responsibilities it places upon me, just as Princess Xylar has honored her responsibility to me by saving my life when conventional medicine could not. A new voice entered the discussion, deep, resonant, and commanding immediate attention. Well spoken, human. The luminary council members immediately straightened, their light patterns shifting to formal configurations. From an entrance Alaric hadn't noticed before, a new luminary entered, one whose crystalline structure was so complex and so brilliantly illuminated that it was almost painful to look at directly. The Radiant Sovereign, Thalix announced with reverence. The ruler of the Luminari, Princess Xylar's parent, and the highest authority in their civilization. Its presence in this meeting elevated the significance beyond anything Alaric had anticipated. The oath my daughter has sworn is valid under our most ancient laws, the sovereign declared, moving to the center of the chamber. Its voice seemed to bypass Alaric's ears entirely, resonating directly in his mind. I have communed with the quantum essence she placed within this human. The bond is true. Lord Xyrex's form darkened further. Sovereign, with all respect, the diplomatic implications are precisely why this council exists. Lord Xyrex, the sovereign interrupted, to navigate complex matters of interspecies relations. It turned its attention fully to Alaric. Captain Reed, do you seek to exploit this oath for military or political advantage over my people? No, Sovereign, Alaric replied without hesitation. I seek only to understand it, and to ensure it doesn't become a source of conflict, rather than cooperation. The Sovereign's form pulsed, with what seemed like approval. Then perhaps this unexpected bond may serve a greater purpose than either of you initially imagined. It addressed the council again. The human speaks truth. I sense no deception in him. Before further discussion could occur, the chamber's atmosphere suddenly shifted. A luminary aide rushed in, its light patterns displaying urgent reds and yellows. Sovereign, counselors! We have detected multiple unauthorized vessels entering our system. They bear the signatures of Blood Crescent insurgents. The council erupted in a flurry of light language, too rapid for Alaric to follow. The sovereign remained calm, its brilliance unwavering. How many vessels? It asked. 17, sovereign, small craft, but heavily armed. And the aide hesitated. They appear to be targeting both the Crystal Citadel and the human vessel in orbit. Alaric felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. My ship, the Aegis. I need to warn them. The sovereign nodded. Counselor Thelix, establish communication with the human vessel. Lord Xyrex, activate the Citadel's defensive matrix. As the council moved to respond to the threat, Alaric felt a sudden, sharp pain in his chest, exactly where Xylar's essence had entered his body. The quantum connection between them flared with unexpected intensity, flooding his mind with images that weren't his own. He saw Princess Xylar aboard the Aegis, surrounded by luminary guards who hadn't been there when he left. He felt her distress, her anger, and most alarmingly, her suspicion that this attack was not what it appeared to be. Captain, Thalix was at his side, concern evident in its light patterns. Are you well? Alaric straightened, fighting through the disorientation of experiencing two perspectives simultaneously. The princess. She's in danger. Not from the attackers, but from someone inside your government. The Sovereign turned its full attention to Alaric. "Explain." "I can feel her," Alaric said, struggling to translate the alien sensations into words. "Through the oath bond. She believes this attack is a diversion. The real threat is already here, among us." The Sovereign's brilliant light dimmed fractionally, the equivalent of a human frown. "Lord Xyrex, what do you know of this?" All attention turned to Xyrex, whose dark, crystalline form had moved subtly toward a secondary exit during the commotion. "Sovereign, Before Xyrex could complete his sentence, he gestured sharply. The chamber's lighting suddenly flared to blinding intensity, and in the moment of confusion, he fled through the exit. "Treachery!" Felix exclaimed. "The Blood Crescent has infiltrated the High Council itself." The Sovereign's response was immediate and decisive. "Secure the Citadel. Alert all defense forces that Lord Xyrex is to be apprehended." It turned to Alaric. "Captain, if what you sense through the bond is correct, both you and my daughter are in grave danger." Alaric nodded grimly. "The attack vessels, the infiltration, it's all connected. A coordinated attempt to sabotage the life-debt oath and trigger conflict between our species." "Then we must act quickly," the Sovereign declared. "Counselor Thelix, escort Captain Reed to the quantum teleportation chamber. He must return to his vessel immediately." As they hurried through the Citadel's complex corridors, Alaric's connection to Xylar grew increasingly intense. He could feel her determination, her struggle, and beneath it all, a growing certainty that everything happening was part of a larger plan set in motion long before the attack on the Aegis. The quantum teleportation chamber was unlike any transport technology Alaric had encountered. Instead of conventional matter-energy conversion, it operated on principles of quantum entanglement, instantly relocating an object by aligning its quantum state with a predetermined destination. This technology is usually reserved for luminary only, Thelix explained as technicians prepared the chamber. "Your unique bond with the princess makes it possible for you to survive the process." Alaric stepped onto the teleportation platform, his mind still partially linked with Xylar's distant consciousness. "What about the attacking vessels? My ship is outnumbered." "Our defense grid is already engaging them," Thelix assured him. "But if Lord Xyrex has truly betrayed us, there may be other threats we haven't identified." The teleportation process began, surrounding Alaric with patterns of light that seemed to deconstruct his very atoms. His last glimpse of the crystal citadel was of the Sovereign, its brilliant form now emanating patterns of light that Alaric somehow understood to be ancient battle preparations. Then reality shifted, twisted, and reformed around him. Alaric found himself standing in the transporter room of the Aegis, surrounded by startled crew members and the unmistakable sounds of a ship at battle stations. "Captain on deck!" exclaimed the transporter chief, recovering quickly from her surprise. "Status report," Alaric demanded, already moving toward the exit. "We're under attack, sir," the chief replied. "Multiple hostile vessels, shields at 60% and holding." Alaric hurried through the corridors toward the bridge, his connection to Xylar guiding him as much as his knowledge of the ship's layout. He could sense her location, not in her quarters as he'd expected, but in the ship's conference room, surrounded by tension and threat. The bridge was a hive of controlled chaos when he arrived. Commander Volkov relinquished the command chair immediately, relief evident on his face. "Captain, how did you—" "Never mind. We've got 11 hostile craft surrounding us, using some kind of phase-shifted weapons that partially penetrate our shields. 3 more are engaged with luminary defense platforms, and we've got a situation with the princess." "I know," Alaric said, surprising his first officer. "She's being held in the conference room." "By whom?" "Luminary security forces who came aboard before the attack began," Volkov explained. "They claim to be acting on orders from their High Council, but something felt off. When the attack started, they isolated her from the rest of the crew. Alaric's tactical mind quickly assembled the pieces. They're not security forces. They're Blood Crescent operatives, probably working with Lord Xyrex. He turned to Security Chief Torres. Assemble a team and meet me at the conference room. Stun setting only. We need prisoners who can talk. Aye, Captain, Torres acknowledged, already moving. Volkov, you have the bridge. Focus on defensive operations. Don't pursue the attacking vessels. That's what they want, to draw us away from the princess. As Alaric left the bridge, the quantum connection with Xylar flared again, providing a flash of insight. The infiltrators were planning to kill her and frame humans for the assassination. With both the princess and Alaric dead, the life-debt oath would become a catalyst for war rather than alliance. The corridor outside the conference room was empty when Alaric arrived with Torres and 3 security officers. Through the closed door, Alaric could sense Xylar's presence and her growing determination. She wasn't a helpless hostage waiting for rescue. She was a luminary royal preparing to fight. On my mark, Alaric whispered, drawing his sidearm. Stun immediately. Questions later. He pressed his palm against the door panel, using his captain's override to unlock it. The door slid open to reveal 4 luminary figures surrounding Princess Xylar. Their crystalline forms were darker than typical luminary, similar to Lord Xyrex's appearance. One held what appeared to be a ceremonial weapon, not unlike the Oathblade, but larger and emanating a malevolent energy. Now, Alaric ordered, and the security team fired in unison. The stun blasts struck 2 of the infiltrators, their crystalline forms temporarily losing coherence as the energy disrupted their quantum matrices. But the other 2 reacted with unexpected speed, one throwing up some kind of energy shield, while the other lunged toward Xylar with the weapon. Alaric didn't hesitate. He threw himself forward, once again interposing his body between the princess and danger. The weapon, a crystal blade humming with dark energy, sliced across his shoulder instead of piercing Xylar's crystalline heart. The pain was immediate and intense, but different from the molecular disruptor. This felt like ice spreading through his veins from the wound, a cold so profound it burned. Despite the agony, Alaric maintained enough presence of mind to fire his weapon point-blank into his attacker's chest. The luminary insurgent collapsed, its dark, crystalline form shattering into fragments. Torres and the security team made quick work of the remaining infiltrator, who surrendered once it became clear the assassination attempt had failed. Xylar was at Alaric's side instantly, her light patterns pulsing with concern as she examined his wound. The Void Blade, she said, her voice tense. It disrupts quantum coherence. For a Luminari, it would be fatal. For you. Alaric grimaced through the pain. Just another scar to add to the collection. Is it fatal? No, she assured him, placing her crystalline hand over the wound. Our life-debt connection protects you, to a degree. But you need medical attention. As if summoned by the thought, Dr. Wei appeared in the doorway, medical scanner already assessing Alaric's condition. Captain, I'm detecting extreme cellular disruption around the wound site, similar to the molecular disruptor damage, but with a different signature. Get him to Medical Bay, Xylar instructed, her tone brooking no argument despite Wei's superior medical knowledge. I must accompany him. The quantum disruption will spread without my intervention. As they made their way to the medical bay, the ship rocked with weapons impact. Torres, status report, Alaric demanded through gritted teeth. The attacking vessels are withdrawing, Captain, Torres replied, after checking his communicator. Luminari defense forces are in pursuit, and we're receiving a priority communication from the Sovereign. In the medical bay, as Dr. Wei worked to stabilize his condition, Alaric watched the main view screen display the luminary ruler's brilliant form. The Sovereign's message was being broadcast not just to the Aegis, but to all vessels in the system. Attention all forces. Lord Xyrex has been apprehended, attempting to flee the system. He has confessed to conspiracy with the Blood Crescent movement to assassinate both Princess Xylar and Captain Reed, with the intent of triggering war between our peoples. The Sovereign's light patterns shifted to formal, authoritative configurations. By ancient law and my sovereign authority, I hereby recognize and affirm the life-debt oath between Princess Xylar and Captain Reed. Let it be known throughout the luminary domains that humanity stands as our honored ally, bound by sacred obligation. The transmission ended, leaving the medical bay in momentary silence. Dr. Wei continued her treatment of Alaric's wound. Now, with Xylar's assistance as the princess, channeled healing energy directly into the quantum disruption. It appears congratulations are in order, Captain, Wei commented dryly. You've single-handedly secured an alliance that our diplomats have been working toward for decades. Alaric winced as a particularly painful wave of treatment energy coursed through his shoulder. Not single-handedly, he corrected, meeting Xylar's crystalline gaze. And I suspect this is just the beginning of a much longer journey. The princess's light patterns shifted to the deep purple he had seen once before, a color he now recognized as representing profound connection. Indeed, Captain, the oath between us has only begun to reveal its purpose. As the Aegis maintained orbit around Luminara Prime, Alaric found himself at the center of rapidly evolving diplomatic developments. Ambassador Mirax had arrived from Earth and immediately immersed himself in negotiations with the Luminari High Council, working to formalize the alliance that had been born from crisis. You've created quite the situation, Captain, Mirax commented during one of their briefings. The ambassador was a tall, slender man with the calm demeanor of a seasoned diplomat. Half the Galactic Alliance is in an uproar over this life debt business. The Vorchan Directorate has filed a formal protest, claiming it disrupts the balance of power. And the other half? Alaric asked, still moving carefully as his shoulder healed from the Void Blade attack. Mirax smiled slightly. The other half is scrambling to improve their own relations with both humans and Luminari. Nothing motivates diplomacy quite like fear of being left out. Princess Xylar, who had taken to attending these briefings as part of her self-appointed duty to Alaric, pulsed with thoughtful blue light. The oath was never intended to create political advantage. It was a sacred recognition of Captain Reed's sacrifice. Nevertheless, Mirax replied, it has created both opportunity and danger. The Blood Crescent movement has been dealt a significant blow with Lord Xyrex's capture. But extremists rarely surrender so easily. Alaric nodded in agreement. They'll regroup, find new leadership. Their ideology doesn't depend on any single individual. Which is why we must seize this moment, Xylar insisted. The life debt oath can be more than a political alliance. It can be the foundation for true understanding between our species. Over the following days, as negotiations continued and Alaric's wound gradually healed, the quantum connection between him and the princess evolved in unexpected ways. The occasional flashes of shared perception became more frequent, more controlled. Alaric found himself able to sense Xylar's presence across considerable distances, to understand her light language without translation. Dr. Wei monitored these developments with scientific fascination. The quantum entanglement is stabilizing, she reported, after one examination. Your cellular structure has partially adapted to accommodate the luminary essence. It's remarkable. Is it permanent? Alaric asked. Wei shrugged. Unknown. This is unprecedented in medical science. But the connection shows no signs of diminishing. If anything, it's growing stronger. This assessment was confirmed when the Luminari High Council summoned both Alaric and Xylar to a formal ceremony in the Crystal Citadel. Unlike his previous visit, Alaric now found the Citadel's impossible geometries less disorienting, as if his perception had expanded to accommodate luminary spatial concepts. The ceremony itself was a solemn affair, attended by representatives from throughout the luminary domains, as well as a delegation from Earth, led by Ambassador Marax. The sovereign presided, its brilliant form dominating the council chamber. Today, we witness the fulfillment of ancient prophecy, the sovereign announced, its mental voice resonating through the assembly. When the stars first gave us form, it was foretold that one day our essence would find harmony with another kind. Many interpreted this as metaphor. Today, we see it as reality. Alaric and Xylar were directed to stand on the central platform of light, where their quantum connection visibly manifested, tendrils of luminescent energy flowing between them, connecting Xylar's crystalline form to Alaric's human body. The oath, sworn between Princess Xylar and Captain Reed, transcends traditional boundaries. The sovereign continued. It represents not merely obligation, but possibility. The possibility that different forms of consciousness can achieve harmony without surrendering identity. The sovereign approached them, bearing what appeared to be two small, crystalline objects. These are quantum resonators, artifacts from our earliest history. They have awaited compatible bearers for millennia. With ceremonial precision, the sovereign presented one to Xylar and one to Alaric. As Alaric accepted the artifact, he felt an immediate resonance with the quantum connection in his chest. The crystal seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. These will help you navigate the evolving bond between you, the sovereign explained, and serve as symbols of the new relationship between our peoples. The ceremony concluded with formal declarations of alliance between Earth and Luminara Prime, establishing frameworks for scientific cooperation, cultural exchange, and mutual defense. Ambassador Marax signed on behalf of Earth, while the sovereign's essence imprint served as the luminary ratification. As the assembled dignitaries dispersed to celebratory gatherings throughout the Crystal Citadel, Alaric found a moment alone with Princess Xylar on one of the Citadel's observation platforms. Below them stretched the crystalline landscape of Luminara Prime, while above, the unusual star that had given birth to the luminary species pulsed with quantum energy. "So, what happens now?" Alaric asked, the quantum resonator warm against his palm. "Does the life-debt oath have an endpoint, or am I stuck with you forever?" His tone made it clear the question was asked in friendship rather than complaint. Xylar's light patterns shifted through several contemplative configurations before settling into the deep purple of connection. The traditional oath would be considered fulfilled when the debtor saves the life of the savior, creating balance. But what exists between us has evolved beyond tradition. She gestured toward the quantum resonator he held. "These artifacts suggest my parent believes our connection serves a greater purpose than either of us yet understands." Alaric studied the crystalline object, feeling its subtle resonance with the luminary essence within him. "Ambassador Marax has offered me a new position, diplomatic liaison to Luminara Prime. Apparently, having quantum entanglement with a princess makes me uniquely qualified." "You're considering it?" Xylar asked, her light patterns brightening with what Alaric now recognized as pleasure. "I'm a soldier, not a diplomat," Alaric admitted. "But this experience has shown me that perhaps the boundaries between those roles aren't as clear as I once thought." He looked out at the alien landscape below. "Besides, I find myself curious about your world, your people. There's so much to learn." "As I am curious about yours," Xylar replied. "The oath may have begun with sacrifice, but it continues with choice. We choose what it becomes." Their conversation was interrupted by a communication from the Aegis. Commander Volkov's voice came through Alaric's communicator, tension evident despite the professional tone. "Captain, we're detecting unusual activity at the edge of the system. Multiple vessels have appeared without using conventional FTL corridors. Alaric straightened, instinctively shifting back into command mode. Hostile? Unknown, sir. They're not responding to hails, but they're not taking aggressive posture either. The luminary defense grid has them surrounded. Xylar's light patterns had shifted to alert configurations. I'm receiving information from the High Council, she said, apparently accessing some form of luminary communication network. The vessels appear to be automated probes of some kind. They're broadcasting a signal directed specifically at us. Us? You mean humans and luminary? No, Xylar clarified, her tone reflecting surprise. Us specifically. You and me. The quantum frequency is precisely calibrated to our shared resonance pattern. The implications sent a chill through Alaric. Someone's been monitoring our connection? From outside the system? Before Xylar could respond. Both their quantum resonators activated simultaneously, projecting a three-dimensional image between them, a star map, with a specific location highlighted. The map was unlike any in Alliance databases, showing stellar configurations from a perspective Alaric didn't recognize. It's an invitation, Xylar said softly, her light patterns reflecting wonder. Or a summons. Alaric studied the projection with a mixture of caution and curiosity. From whom? I don't know, she admitted. But the quantum signature suggests a civilization that understands the principles of our connection better than we do ourselves. As they stood together on the observation platform, the projection from their resonators expanded to show more detail. Not just a location, but a journey. A path through space that would take them far beyond known territories. The choice is ours, Xylar said, after a long moment of contemplation. We can ignore this. Focus on the alliance we've begun between our peoples. Or, Alaric prompted, already suspecting her preference. Her light patterns shifted to a configuration he hadn't seen before, something that conveyed both determination and hope. Or we follow this path together, discover what larger purpose our connection might serve. Alaric thought of his duty to Earth, to the Aegis and her crew, but he also thought of the unprecedented opportunity before them, to explore not just new space, but new forms of connection between vastly different forms of consciousness. The alliance between our peoples is established, he said thoughtfully. It will continue with or without our direct involvement. But this, he gestured to the projection, this may be something only we can investigate. Xylar's crystalline form seemed to brighten from within. Then we are agreed? Alaric smiled, feeling the quantum connection between them pulse with shared purpose. We are. But first, we have a lot of explaining to do to our respective governments. As the projection continued to rotate between them, mapping a journey into unknown space, Alaric felt a certainty that transcended both human intuition and luminary quantum perception. Whatever waited for them at the end of this path, it would transform not just their understanding of each other, but of life itself throughout the galaxy. The life debt oath that had begun with a single act of sacrifice had opened a door neither of them could have imagined, a door they would now step through together, not as debtor and savior, but as equal explorers of a new frontier. Together, then, Xylar said, extending her crystalline hand. Alaric took it without hesitation, their quantum resonators humming in perfect harmony. Together. The automated probes at the edge of the system began to withdraw, their purpose apparently fulfilled. But the path they had revealed remained, glowing with possibility between human and luminary, a testament to the power of connection across the seemingly insurmountable gulf between different forms of consciousness. And somewhere, beyond the reaches of known space, something awaited them, something that had recognized the unique bridge they had formed, and had extended an invitation that only they could accept.